Hello and welcome to a video about my photoperiod plants. In this episode, we'll be pruning the mother plants, taking 2 clones, topping, applying low-stress training, and lollipopping to prepare for bloom. These clones will be transplanted into large 11-gallon or 42-liter pots. I'll be experimenting with amending ProMix HP with Gaia Green dry amendments. A big thank you to Spiderfarmer for sponsoring this video. We start today's adventure by taking a few cuttings from our mother plants. While I'm at it, I give them a trim to reduce their size, which will increase the air circulation within the garden. There will be less plant matter to be claimed as a home for pests, as well as pruning will help to keep the plant fresh and growing. Today's clones will be rooted using an aeroponics spray cloner box. I've added 30 ml of Clonex seedling and clone nutrient to the water. I removed the lowest nodes from the cutting and wedge her into a foam puck. They're a little bit dirty, I'll clean them for the next time that I use them. I also covered them in a plastic bag to increase their humidity. Four days later, I was back to water the mother plants and adjust the pH of the clone box. I had forgotten to bring it when I took the cuttings. I must have replayed the quick time-lapse shown before this day about 30 times. Next time I take clones, I'm going to leave the humidity bag on for at least another 4 days. In this bottle, I've added about 15 drops of my pH down to a little bit of water. I'd like to bring the reservoir from about 7.3 pH down to 6. Perfect. "25 more days of watering the mother plants roughly every 4 to 5 days with 2 liters of dechlorinated tap water each, and topping up the clone box just 1 time. And we've got a little bit of a jungle going on in here. We've got 1 clone that's a little bit small and has been shaded, but the other one is quite big. My bamboo plant seems to be doing alright, but the avocado, not so much. Yeah, avocado's not looking too good. For my clones, I'm going to pot them into ProMix HP that's been amended with Gaia Green Organics. Every time I mix a batch of soil, I always mix a little bit extra, and it's been adding up, so I didn't need to blend any extra for these plants. Inside, there should be roughly 10% worm castings, 45 ml per 4 liters of 444 all-purpose, 15 ml of glacial rock dust, and a little bit of extra mycorrhizal. After packing in the plant, I water with about 1 liter of dechlorinated tap water. Well, I think she's rooted. Similar to the other clone, I gave her 1 liter of dechlorinated tap water. This plant has a very dominant main branch. To help balance out the plant, I'm going to top her near the height of the majority of her other branches. Now I suppose I could technically clone this branch, but that would be a bit too much. The top of the mother plants are getting a little bit too close to the light. They're past due for a trim. "12 days later, and I'm thinking it's time to have some fun. The mother plants are completely overgrown and really need a trim. But before that, I think I should try my hand at a little bit of grafting. The plan is to use some Teflon tape to try to bind the two branches together, and then use a little bit of electrical tape to seal the deal like a cast. After taking a cutting, I use my scissors and cut this side into a V shape. It's a little bit rough, which probably isn't good. I remove a top from one of the photoperiod clones and try to slice the stem into 2 even halves. I'll be using a razor the next time I have to do this kind of precise work. Next, you're going to want to hold both sides together firmly while you're using your third arm to wrap the Teflon tape to bind the 2 branches together. After that traumatic experience was over, I put a bag over her head so that she can breathe by absorbing the extra water in the air. It's time for a quick round 2. And we're off to a great start. I've cut a little flap off the side. There, that ain't going nowhere. I believe that'll do it. I then took out my frustration on the mother plants. The mother plants were showing signs of deficiency before the trimming, so I prepared a 4-liter jug of dechlorinated tap water with 4 mils of Flora overgrown mixed in. Each mother plant got about 1/3 of the jug. Six days later, and the grafts aren't looking too promising. My buddy was telling me that the first step on learning how to graft your plants is to fail your first graft. So with that in mind, I think we're doing pretty good. The clones are thickening up nicely, so I'm not too worried about losing a single branch. The next day, on the clone's 49th day from cutting, and it's time to bring them into a larger tent. I've noticed a few fungus gnats flying around these plants, so I'm going to spread some diatomaceous earth over the top of the soil to help prevent them. Diatomaceous earth kills fungus gnats by grinding down their exoskeletons, which dehydrates and kills them. I always prefer to use a mechanical or organic form of pest prevention when possible. The next day, I was pleased to see that the Cookie Crumble clone had reached the same height as the Tangerine Truffle Breath clone. I think this is a perfect time to top her. Now this plant will be forced to branch out horizontally, which will make her form a similar structure to the plant next to her. Their soils were dry, so I watered each of them with 1 liter of dechlorinated tap water. If you've been enjoying this video and would like to see more from my gardens, make sure to check out my second channel, Basement Gardens. You can find a link at the bottom of the description below. And a big thank you to Spiderfarmer for sponsoring this video and making it possible. If you're looking to upgrade your garden, consider Spiderfarmer and use code BASEMENT on checkout for an 8% discount. Keep an eye on their website for frequent sales for just about every component that you could need in your garden. My mother plants have been basking around 12 inches or 30 centimeters under an SF3000 at 50% power. For For air circulation, I'm using the Spiderfarmer 6-inch fan. I've been thoroughly impressed with this fan, and I've used a lot of cheaper fans that are in this size bracket. This model just blows the others out of the park. It has a very sturdy construction, has 10 power modes, and can oscillate. I'm using mine on speed 4, which is enough for my small vegging plants, inside this 2x4 or 60cm by 120cm tent. For airflow through the tent, I'm using a 4-inch inline fan, pulling through a carbon filter to eliminate the smell. Look no further than Spiderfarmer if you want to take your garden to the next level. Use code BASEMENT on their official websites, which you can find links for in the description, to save 8% from your order. Use code BASEMENT3 to save 3% off Spiderfarmer products on Amazon. 6 days later, on the clone's 56th day since cutting, and they're looking thirsty. These clones have been in a pretty small pot, and they haven't been receiving the most intense light, so they're a little bit lanky. I like to see that the top branches on the Cookie Crumble clone have started to bush out. Today, they each got about 1 liter of dechlorinated tap water. 3 days later, they got another 1 liter. I suppose it's probably time to give up on these grafted branches. The soil was dry, so I watered each plant with 1 liter of dechlorinated tap water. 3 days later, they both got another liter. And another one. Both plants have now grown enough since their topping, and now have branches that are a good length to be trained. Before training, I think it's a good idea to transplant both of them into a new pot. I could move each plant into a 5-gallon or 7-gallon pot, but I think that'd be fun to put them together in an 11-gallon or 42-liter pot. I'd start by measuring out a full pot worth of ProMix HP. Then I'll be adding in 10% worm castings, 45 mils per 4 liters of 444 all-purpose, a good sprinkle of mycorrhizal, and 15 mils per 4 liters glacial rock dust. I filled the pot around halfway so that the soil line on the clones is roughly near to the top of the big pot. I then scratch off some of the excess soil from the soil line before test fitting the plant. It's going to be pretty tight for 2 plants, so I decide to scrape away a little bit of the soil from the edges of the pot as well. Nice. These clones will now enter their new home, under my SE3000. The light is on around 80% power and is hung around 40 inches or 100 centimeters away from the plants. To water her in, I'll be giving her 6 liters of dechlorinated tap water. And I'll also feed 4 liters of distilled water to my humidifier. It's pretty dry out right now, so I think the plants will be quite pleased to have some extra humidity. Now that the plants are situated, they're ready for training. I could have done the training yesterday, but I was pretty busy and I really didn't want to rush it. The plan is to tie down the plant to around this elevation using low stress training stakes. This is also the elevation that our lowest branches reach to, so that's the part of the plant that will lollipop up to. It's good to test the flexibility of your branches and to plan out the directions that you want to train them, to evenly distribute them throughout your garden. You always want to try to secure your low stress training stakes far out on a branch, close to the apex. On longer branches, you might need to add a second stake halfway down to support the branch and relieve the torque that's being applied to the apex. There's been a little bit of bloodshed, but it's not over yet. Now this canopy is perfectly good to bloom, but I kind of want to take it one step further. I'm going to completely lollipop the plants. I'm going to remove all of the smaller nodes that are not at the end of each branch. It might look a little brutal to give them the poodle treatment, but these branches are going to explode. And now they're all nicely distributed apart. There is a little bit of a hole on the right side, but we'll be able to fix that in the next training session. Three days later, and she's starting to come around. Today I watered her with 7 liters of dechlorinated tap water. 2 days later, she was thirsty enough for another 6 liters, and another 6 liters. This time she got 7 liters. "10 days since her big training day, and this is how she's looking. I think she's looking happy enough to be sent into bloom. She still has a little bit of purpling on the stems, but I think that'll be sorted out once her roots have more thoroughly grown into the fresh soil. It will definitely be satisfying to fill in this hole on the right side once she's stretched into bloom. Today her soil was dry, so I watered her with 7 liters, and, well, it's time to switch her to bloom. Now that the photoperiod plants are set to have 12 hours of light and 12 hours of darkness, it's time to engage the supplemental lighting. To set the light at 100% power, the SE3000 puts off around 1000 ppfd at 40 centimeters or 16 inches when on 100% power. On the 12-12 timer, I have both the SE3000 and the red strip. Independently, I have the deep red turn on for 15 minutes before the main light comes on and 15 minutes after it turns off, and the UV light turns on for 15 minutes of every hour while the light is running. 4 days later. It's always satisfying to put a photoperiod plant into bloom. I really wanted to grow plants like this because I've seen many times that people grow their plants and then wonder how they can train them to be more efficient. I wanted to share an example of a plant going from imperfect conditions towards big improvements and preparation for success. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please give it a like and subscribe to stay tuned for the next episode. And another big thank you to Spiderfarmer for sponsoring this video, making it possible. Use code BASEMENT at checkout for a discount.